Hey guys! Tonight we will unveil a shocking secret. Queen Elizabeth I, glorious ruler of England, hardly ever touched water. Have you ever wondered? If she went months without bathing, did she smell terrible? Or did she possess a miraculous herbal formula to fool the nose? Or might she have suffered from a rare condition that made her skin not need washing? You wouldn't survive a day trying that royal 24-hour bath experiment. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Hi Six, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Renaissance context and the fear of miasma. In the 16th century, Europe was experiencing the dazzling height of the Renaissance period, when art, architecture, and science reached unprecedented heights. In Florence, Michelangelo sculpted the mighty statue of David. In Rome, Bernini completed St. Peter's Basilica, and in Padua, Andreas Vesalius performed the first public human dissections and illustrated anatomy in vivid detail. Copernicus's revolutionary theory that Earth orbited the Sun challenged millennia of established dogma. Yet alongside these intellectual triumphs, early modern medicine remained bound by the outdated Galenic Hippocratic framework of 4 humors and the theory of miasma, harmful vapors believed to carry deadly diseases. According to the miasma theory, poisonous air arose from decaying corpses, swamps, and refuse heaps, filling the surrounding atmosphere with invisible pathogens. When people came into contact with water, especially warm water, their pores would open, allowing miasma to invade the body and trigger plague, fevers, or other fatal illnesses. This vague dread of invisible toxins made even the aristocracy wary of bathing, convinced that immersing themselves in water was a greater danger than filth itself. Once, the public baths, thermae, built by the Romans, had served as cultural hubs for socializing, relaxation, and hygiene. But after successive waves of plague in the late Middle Ages, most thermae were shut down to prevent contagion. Royal palaces that once hosted grand bathing halls were reduced to small rooms containing only a few wooden tubs. City dwellers were forced to adapt rather than bathe. They wiped themselves with damp cloths, dusted their garments with scented powders, and donned perfumed gloves to mask bodily odors. The highest echelons of society devised what might be called stealth hygiene. They layered up in pristine white linen undergarments, coated exposed skin with whitening powders, and dabbed concentrated cologne behind their ears and on their wrists. Etiquette manuals and medical texts of the era recommended merely wiping the face, rinsing one's hands, and brushing intimate areas with a coarse cloth. Bath chambers were seen less as sanctuaries of cleanliness than as potential hotbeds of miasma. Anyone entering risked carrying the poison back home. Amid this atmosphere of fear, Elizabeth Tudor ascended the English throne in 1558 and reigned for nearly half a century. She became famous for her lavish wardrobe, gold brocade gowns richly embroidered with pearls, ruffled collars rising high about her neck, and lace-trimmed veils that framed her alabaster face. Her ivory complexion was accentuated with ceruse, white lead makeup, and Venetian red, crimson rouge, creating the era's ideal pale perfection. Yet behind the opulent garments and makeup mask lay a startling reality. The Queen bathed, en average, only once a month. Elizabeth's signature wigs served a dual purpose. They were both a fashion statement and a barrier against moisture and grime. These human hair wigs were set with homemade adhesive made from resin and egg whites, preserving their shape for weeks without the need for washing, along with layers of heavy makeup that effectively sealed her pores. The Queen's skin rarely touched water. This aversion to water stemmed not only from the dread of miasma, but also from the doctrine of the 4 humors. Physicians taught that sudden shifts in body temperature, as exposure to cold or hot water, could unbalance the humours, leading to chills, headaches, or muscular disorders. At medical schools like Salerno and Padua, students were instructed to cleanse themselves using only warm cloths infused with vinegar or herbs, rather than full immersion. Thus, the term vapours became common parlance for the unseen miasmatic clouds thought to cling to one's skin after a bath. To the English public and foreign envoys alike, Elizabeth's rare bathing rituals only enhanced her mystique. On the few occasions she did bathe, a grand ceremony unfolded. A copper tub was brought in, filled with water, scented with rose petals, myrrh, and chamomile. Her ladies-in-waiting oversaw every step, ensuring that the event set against the flicker of candlelight was as much a display of royal power as a hygiene practice. In the vast halls of Whitehall Palace, fragrant smoke curled through the air, blurring the line between reality and spectacle. Thus, the Queen's sumptuous attire, elaborate wigs, and heavy makeup became a double shield. They protected her from the feared miasma and projected an image of supreme wealth, authority, and refined taste. While her subjects guarded themselves fiercely against water, Elizabeth I reigned above it all, her near-total abstention from bathing making her seem not less human, but otherworldly. An immortal sovereign beyond the reach of ordinary concerns about cleanliness. In the warm glow of the royal bathing chamber, as tendrils of rose and myrrh incense curled through the air, people still whispered of an unseen terror, miasma, the poisonous vapour said to carry disease, Renaissance physicien. Even as they began dissecting human cadavers to understand anatomy, remained haunted by the idea that bad air, rising from swamps, rotting carcasses, or refuse heaps could, upon contact with water, slip through open pores and unleash fevers, pestilence, or even the Black Death. Across great medical schools from Paris to Padua, the mantra "bathe sparingly" echoed like a protective charm. In 1655, the French physician Tesserode warned that one should only bathe when absolutely necessary, for water drives the poisonous vapours toward the brain, weakening the nerves and making the sinews brittle. Ordinary folk dared only to splash their faces and hands, let alone submerge themselves in a copper tub. Yet some sought a middle path between hygiene and fear. The English philosopher, Francis Bacon, devised a ritual known as the 24-hour bath. According to royal records, it began by anointing the skin with a protective layer of olive oil blended with precious herbal extracts, rose petals, myrrh, and sargento temporarily seal the pores against miasma. Next, the bather eased into a large copper basin filled with scalding water, infused with dried flower petals and aromatic oils. Candlelight danced on the surface, lending an almost dreamlike quality as the bather soaked for 1 to 2 hours, long enough to relax the body, yet short enough to prevent the feared vapours from penetrating. Upon leaving the tub, the bather did not immediately towel off. Instead, they were wrapped snugly in a waxer-treated cloth-thick linen, steeped in beeswax, resin, myrrh, and turmeric, encasing the skin for the next 24 hours. During this time, the body remained warm and dry, and the fragrant herbal scents warded off any lingering miasma. Those 24 hours passed in serene stillness. Reclining on a velvet chaise, the bather might listen to the gentle plucking of a lute or follow the soft flutter of tapestry in a breeze. Nobles described a sensation of floating between worlds, cocooned in warmth and cut off from worldly ills. When the day ended, removing the waxed cloth was done slowly, each layer peeling away to reveal supple, softly perfumed skin. The final step was a gentle drying with fine linen, followed by an application of olive oil, sea salt, and turmeric powder to rebalance moisture, soothe the veins, and reinforce the body's last defense against miasma. Though elaborate and costly, the 24-hour bath became a hallmark of England's elite. Each waxed wrap imported from the Mediterranean, each jar of scented oil sourced from the East, testified to the bather's wealth and status. Commoners could hardly imagine such luxury. Etiquette manuals of the day counseled noble women to wipe only their faces, hands, and most intimate areas with vinegar rouge and herb cloths, while noblemen merely rinsed their hands before the royal tablenever, risking a full-body immersion. In folk memory, the bathing tub itself was sometimes called a miasma trap, a place where one might unwittingly summon the very poison they sought to avoid. Today, as we freely step under invigorating showers or soak in modern jacuzzis, it's hard to recall the mingled awe and dread of Renaissance bathers. Steam rooms and hot soak snow, celebrated for boosting circulation and flushing toxins, were once thought the surest way to invite deadly vapors. And so, having heard the story of the 24-hour bath, that most peculiar chapter in the history of personal hygiene, close your eyes. Let a gentle drowsiness drift over you, and imagine yourself cocooned in that warm, scented wrap, drifting off into a peaceful Renaissance-style slumber. In the hush of European cities at nightfall, tales still linger of the grand bathhouses of old vast marble halls with vaulted arches, where steam curled gently beneath golden candlelight. There, people not only soaked in warm vapors, but also exchanged news and relaxed after a day's toil. Then, when horrifying waves of plague swept through, authorities ordered every bathhouse closed. Spaces once filled with chatter and mist fell silent. Heavy doors barred, steam trapped behind cold stone. From that moment, communal bathing all but vanished. People had to find new ways to stay clean. Though the fear of miasma never left them, who would dare return to those steamy rooms where poisonous vapors might lurk? Instead, they patted themselves with dry cloths, dusted their garments with scented powders, and slipped on perfumed gloves, invisible armor against harmful airs. For the common folk, options were scarce. The nobility, however, devised a refined alternative, layering pristine white linen shifts. They believed sweat and dirt clung to the fabric. So by changing undergarments frequently, sometimes twice daily, they remained presentable. Rows of white skirts billowing in the breeze became a visual reminder that cleanliness came not from water, but from the pure linen itself. Wearing multiple layers of linen served not only hygiene but also status. The more layers you wore, the finer your fabric and the higher your rank. To lack clean linen was a mark of poverty. To don an intricately embroidered shift was to display one's power. At cour de banquet, ladies in waiting kept fresh shifts at the ready one. Small stain or hint of odour could tarnish the royal spectacle. Queen Elizabeth I, the shining symbol of English authority, was no exception. She paired her white linen shifts with gold brocade gowns and delicate lace veils, forming a double shield, protecting her skin from dreaded water contact while showcasing her royal standing. When she stepped into the courtyard, layers of silk and linen billowed in the morning sun, adding to her aura of almost immortal grandeur. Francis Bacon, the robed philosopher, once wrote in a letter, "A clean linen shirt may serve in lieu of water." This maxim recurs in the medical and etiquette manuals of the time. Linen became a second skin, shielding and cleansing the body, while water was the treacherous intruder. Thus, the ritual of changing linen daily became indispensable to courtly life. At dawn, attendants would gently open wooden armoires to retrieve the Queen's freshly laundered shifts, immaculately white, soft as silk. They laid each smoothly on a velvet chair before helping her dress. The process unfolded like a slow dance, the whisper of linen against skin, marking each deliberate movement. In the afternoon, after state ceremonies, Elizabeth often retired to her private chambers to change again. A window ajar let in a gentle breeze, and the scent of garden blossoms Witnesses said the very sight of a figure swathed in crisp linen, bathed in candlelight, was enough to enchant any observer. As if witnessing a dance of purity, along the long corridors, under grand royal portraits, courtiers walked beside the Queen at just the right distance so as not to crush her immaculate linen. Every step and gesture was measured. For linen shifts were not only modes of hygiene, but talismans against the unseen diseases rumoured to dwell in water. At night, after the candles were extinguished, attendants brought the final set of undergarments, wrapped in fresh linen bundles. For the Queen's bedtime change, the soft rustle of fabric, the gentle warmth beneath sumptuous bed covers, and the steady cadence of her breathing beneath violet quilts combined to create an atmosphere of safety and calm. And so, to the strains of violin and harpsichord, the English court moved through days of elegance and ease. Though water was deemed an invisible foe, the nobility discovered silent ways to remain fresh: white shifts, fine linen, and ever-evolving rituals. Today, when we think of linen, we picture coolness, absorbency, and durability. Few realize that white linen shifts were once the royal essentials, a lifeline for hygiene in an age without public baths. It marks humanity's journey from superstition to understanding, from fear of water to celebration of bathing. But in the memory of those fluttering white folds lingers the echo of miasma's threat. And now, as the story of vanishing bathhouses and the white linen tradition fades into the night, let your mind quiet. Imagine yourself draped in that pristine linen. I hear the whispering breeze at the window and drift gently into a peaceful slumber. When the weariness of a long day settled over Whitehall Palace, only one ceremony could banish all anxiety: Queen Elizabeth I's bath. This was not a simple soak, but a grand purification rite staged like a royal spectacle. First, a massive copper tube rivaling the size of a royal cradle was carried in from the back corridor. Candlelight trembled on its polished rim, casting a warm glow. The water, heated in enormous copper cauldrons over wood embers, steamed up to mingle with the scent of herbs, red rose petals, balimir resin, and dried chamomile flowers drifted in the steam, their antiseptic properties believed to ward off infection. Attendants in flowing silk gowns handled every detail with solemn care. They mixed apple cider vinegar with purified spring water, added drops of pure rose water, and soaked soft linen cloths in the solution. These cloths would be used first to wipe the Queen's skin cleansing without submerging, while the vinegar and rosewater were thought to close pores and kill lingering bacteria. The photo-washing ceremony began. The Queen placed one graceful foot on the tub's rim, her eyes gently closed as attendants warmed her calves and ankles with the linen cloths. The sound of linen brushing skin and the hush of heated air created a cocoon of calm. Then Elizabeth eased herself into the tub, settling as though she were a living statue. Gentle plumes of steam curled around her elaborate wig and powdered face. Attendants dipped wooden ladles into the fragrant water, infused with petals and oil sand poured it over her shoulders, back, and neck. Each pour carried the scents and purported healing benefits of the botanicals. Time seemed to slow. In the candlelit bath chamber, the only sounds were the drip of water and hushed breaths. A damp linen strip brushed away traces of leady-based makeup, replaced by the soothing aroma of rose and myrrh. Each touch was deliberate and unhurried, easing tension from both skin and spirit. When the Queen finally rose from the water, she did not towel off at once. Instead, she leaned back against a padded bench as ladies waiting cleared petals and wiped down the basin. Then a thick cotton cloth pre-soaked in beeswax, resin, myrrh, and turmeric was laid on a nearby table. Elizabeth stepped out, her wet skin immediately wrapped in that scented cloth. The wax melted at her body heat, forming a fragrant seal that both retained warmth and protected her skin from any remaining pathogens. Next came fresh linen undergarments, woven by Europe's finest millers. Over these, She donned a new brocade gown, threaded with gold, and a delicate lace veil. Every detail from the cleansing cloths to the imported oils and spices spoke of imperial wealth. Silks from Venice, resin from the East, and turmeric from India, all reserved for one sovereign alone. What seemed merely a bath was truly a display of power and luxury. Each towel, each vial of scented oil, each woven cotton and beeswax wrap symbolized Elizabeth's dominion. By candlelight, with attendants' soft laughter echoing in the corridor, she emerged radiant, once more ever fresh. Ever regal-like, the living embodiment of the Renaissance itself. Between the rare moments when Queen Elizabeth I devoted herself to the full bath ritual, life at court continued with its own quiet, refined hygiene routines. When the fragrant steam-filled copper tub was absent, she preserved her art of cleanliness in every minute detail, turning each day into a gentle ceremonial dance in the hushed atmosphere of the palace. Mornings typically began with ladies-in-waiting presenting a wooden tray piled with soft linen cloths, dampened overnight in a mixture of apple cider vinegar and a few drops of ancient rosewater. They would gently shake out each cloth so that the faint tang of vinegar and the whisper of rose filled the air. A delicate dawn greeting. The Queen would take a cloth, close her eyes, and slowly wipe from neck to ankle. Each pass performed with unhurried grace warmth from her skin, melding into the vinegar solution, banishing the last lingering scents of the night's smoke and rousing her senses. Once her body was freshened, attention turned to her face. A small, ornate jar of dry powder, finely milled from millet starch and sandalwood, dust rested on a velvet cushion. Using a slender wooden spatula, a lady would lift a pinch of powder into the Queen's palm, then gently pat it over her forehead, cheeks, and chin. The powder absorbed excess oil, leaving her skin as smooth and cool as morning dew on petals. Though it took only minutes, the effect was remarkable. Skin that felt cleansed and revived, as though newly reborn at dawn. Next came the perfumed gloves. Thin leather gloves, lined with a square of linen, had been soaked in a blend of lavender, clary sage, and a rare cologne essence. The Queen slipped them on and lightly massaged her arms, neck, and the back of her shoulders, areas prone to perspiration yet often overlooked. A subtle veil of fragrance enveloped her, an invisible cloak that neutralized any hint of body odor. Each brush of the gloves was slow and soft, as though the scent itself floated around her like a gentle breeze. Oral hygiene was its own art. The Queen possessed a pair of hand-embroidered linen wipes, edged with black silk stitching. Each morning, she would dip a strip in vinegar, diluted with rosewater, wrap it around her fingertip, and tenderly scrub her teeth to remove plaque and brighten her smile. She then would use golden toothpicks delicately engraved and plated in 24-karat gold to dislodge any remaining fragments. The soft click of each toothpick was oddly soothing, an intimate ritual that readied her for public audiences. She also owned an exquisite eerie cleaning tool made of silver inlaid with ruby. Each day, a handmaiden would guide the jewel-tipped end of the instrument through her ear canal, carefully clearing any wax. The ruby's glow, illuminated by candlelight, lent the smallest gesture a luminous grace. Even the minutest aspect of Elizabeth's grooming bespoke luxury, reserved for the highest echelon. Perhaps the most striking feature of her in-between bath hygiene was the frequent changing of her linen shifts. Not once, but often twice or 3 times a day. She would withdraw behind closed doors to don a fresh undergarment. Each shift, laundered with meticulous care and dried under the gentle sun of the palace gardens, was stored in a cedar-lined chest to preserve its scent. According to contemporary belief, swapping linen was akin to renewing the body. Each crisp change was a physical purging, mirroring the cleansing of the soul. Amid state councils and royal feasts, Elizabeth I took comfort in knowing that, between her lavish but infrequent baths, She remained impeccably fresh, every act wiping with vinegar cloths, dusting with dry powder, gloving with fragrance, and the ritual of linen changes was performed in serene silence, as soft and natural as her own breathing, driving away fatigue from flesh and quieting her mind. At dusk, as candle flames dwindled and corridors hushed, the Queen would perform one final cleansing, a gentle pass with the vinegar cloth, then a final dusting of powder. The palace would fill with the mingled scents of sweetgrass and clary sage, weaving through the distant notes of a harpsichord. In that moment, her evening ablutions became a lullaby for both body and spirit, preparing her for the restorative embrace of sleep. Though Elizabeth I never bathed by modern standards, she was renowned among rulers for her superb cleanliness. She equated clean linen with clean body, and through each meticulously timed change of her pristine shifts, she demonstrated the ultimate power. Even the softest rustle of linen against skin belonged to the sovereign authority of the crown. And as night fell, and the palace sank into stillness, the Queen would dab a fingertip in her vinegar blend, press it gently to her lips to soothe them, and smile ever so slightly. The faint tang of vinegar was the final benediction of a perfectly complete dire gateway to a peaceful slumber, where each cleansing ritual, from the grand bath to the simple linen wipe, merged into the sweet dreams of an immortal monarch. When it comes to royal hygiene in the early modern era, Elizabeth I was far from alone in her peculiar water avoidance. Many monarchs of the time believed that bathing too often was not only unnecessary but even dangerous, and tales of their body odors spread all across Europe, fueling endless gossip. Immediately after Elizabeth's death, her successor on the English throne, James I, maintained a similarly pragmatic view. He washed only his hands and occasionally his face before sitting down to meals. James insisted that prolonged immersion in water would drain the precious humours flowing through his body. Instead of bathing, he preferred to wipe himself with a vinegar-dampened cloth and burn incense in his chambers to mask any personal scent. Under James's reign, Whitehall Palace remained shrouded in the smoke of resins, and foreign envoys often remarked that the air sometimes felt oppressively heavy. France, too, was not immune to stories of royal hygiene quirks. Henry IV, 1553–1610, became one of the most notorious kings for body odour. Historians record that Henri's libertine lifestyle, drinking, dancing, and swordplay often left him no time for bathing. Legend held that the stench of Henri was more famous than the cheers of his cavalry. His son, Louis XIII, inherited this gift from his father and proudly declared, "I have inherited the royal perfume of the House of Bourbon," much to the dismay of courtiers and guests, where James I, Henry IV, and Louis XIII all shunned the bath. Elizabeth I won favour by embracing elaborate dryer cleaning methods and courtly rituals. This contrast helped her project an image of both purity and power, an asset in diplomacy and courtly life. At Versailles, under Louis XIV, 1638–1715, the saga grew even more extravagant. Known as the Sunday King, Louis XIV purportedly bathed only twice in his entire life. Instead, he devoted boundless attention to perfume, from state banquets to private audiences. He spritzed rose, jasmine, amber, and musk on his robes, gloves, handkerchiefs, and even stitched scents into curtains. Versailles soon became the epicenter of Europe's perfume trade, its streets awash in fragrance, to mask the absence of water and affirm social hierarchy. Within the court, the constant changing of white linen undergarments replaced the bathtub. Louis would don several fresh shifts each day, keeping his first ladies and chambermaids frantically laundering throughout the day. In stark contrast to Western Europe's anti-eye-to-water customs, The Nordic and Eastern regions retained their public bathing traditions, banyas in Russia and saunas in Sweden and Finland. In Moscow, woody heated steam rooms were followed by plunges into iced ponds, believed to detoxify and stimulate circulation. The Western explorer Jan Huygens described his visit to a St. Petersburg banya. Steam engulfed me. Chants of expelling gloom filled the air. Then the icy water crashed down, numbing my limbs but instantly washing away fatigue. Sicken rumble. In Sweden and Finland, saunas became cultural gathering places for families and friends. The act of gently whipping oneself with birch branches, vita or vasta, was thought to open pores and invigorate the blood. Regarded as the deepest form of cleansing, locals held that filth was a mark of backwardness, not simplicity of view, in direct opposition to the water-shunning courtly practices in London and Versailles. Compared to the royal courts of London and Versailles, the great Nordic estates fortified with pinewood steam chambers, morning sauna, sessions of at least half an hour, and icy plunges or cooling fountains offered both physical renewal and intimate venues for discussing state affairs, public yet personal tradition. Overall, attitudes about water and cleanliness among early modern monarchies reflected their cultures and climates. In England and France, where miasma was feared above all kings and queens bypassed baths in favour of perfume and linen. In Northern and Eastern Europe, where harsh winters and public washhouses had long signified communal health, steam and water were embraced as therapeutic necessities. Throughout history, these differing approaches underscore the personalities and power behind the throne. Elizabeth I, with her 24-hour bath and dryer cleaning rites. James I, who washed only his hands. Henri IV and Louis XIII, infamous for their odours. Louis XIV perfuming every corner of Versailles. And the Nordic rulers who kept the sauna fires burning. These unique choices paint a vivid, multifaceted portrait of how sovereigns managed a basic human need, cleanliness. And as you listen, imagine yourself drifting through gilded corridors and fog-filled steam rooms, breathing in each scented whisper before slipping into a gentle slumber, where every fragrance and ritual becomes a lullaby woven from history, amid the ominous atmosphere of 16th, 17th century European courts. The fear of poisoning constantly haunted royalty, plots to taint, seemingly harmless bath water transformed bathing into a perpetual threat. Secret memoranda from the Privy Council in London, Versailles, and Madrid repeatedly warned of schemes to slip strange substances into royal baths, so that a monarch might either rest secure on the throne or perish after what appeared to be an ordinary bathing ritual. Thus, bathing was not merely an act of hygiene, but a life and death gamble demanding the utmost caution. This terror found its roots in a series of horrific assassination attempts within European dynasties. Marie de Medici, wife of King Henry IV of France, fled the Louvre when her guards discovered a plot to poison her bathwater. In Spain, Habsburg court records tell of an infante who died after drinking from the morning bathing vessel. Rumours spread across the continent. Who can be certain that the water is not a silent executioner? From that point, attitudes toward bathtubs changed forever. To counter the threat, royal households selected only the purest water sources, subjected to multiple purification steps. Rainwater was collected in marble-lined cisterns outside the palace, never touching the ground. When brought in, it was boiled and infused with antiseptic herb savory, angelica, camphor, and occasionally fortified with a few drops of brandy. Every stage occurred under the strict supervision of the royal medical staff, who sampled, tasted, and certified its quality. The preparation could consume an entire morning. First, a small sample was tested on an animal, often a piglin, the presence of the deputy chief physician. If the animal's skin reddened or reacted poorly, that batch was destroyed immediately. The main water barrels, once boiled, were then covered with the finest linen cloth to keep out insects and dust. When the steaming copper bath arrived in the royal bathing chamber, Dozens of ladies-in-waiting and guards formed two orderly lines, each holding a lantern or torch to light the way. No unauthorized person could enter the bathing area. All doors were secured with double locks, whose keys were entrusted to a single high-ranking officer. Anyone seeking access had to present official permission. The bathing ritual itself thus became even more mysterious. The Queen was not simply washed, she followed an exact sequence. First, her hands were cleansed, then hair, face, before she would even consider stepping into the tub. Each task was assigned to a specially selected lady, ingenuity drawn from the most loyal familiar trained rigorously in both hygiene practices and security protocols. They memorized every step of the detox process, could identify various medicinal herbs by scent, and were skilled at detecting any foreign substance. Before the official royal bath, a senior attendant prepared a separate control sample to be discreetly tested by foreign court physicians, censuring no collusion between host and visiting dignitaries. The secrecy of the ritual underscored the chasm between monarch and commoner. Only those with explicit orders could participate in or witness the ceremony. The fusion of medical science and security made royal bathing a double-edged safeguard. It defended the body against miasma and neutralized the fear of poison. Every drop of water vapor, every vinegar served as armor against hidden threats. Yet, popular legend still spoke of a water spirit haunting the bath zone. Tale told of an Austrian princess whose bathwater was poisoned, leaving her so pale that her brother swore vengeance on her behalf. The separation of royal bathing from public life only magnified the monarchy's authority. No commoner could know whether dust or contaminants had infiltrated the royal tub, nor whether samples had been properly tested. This secret was defended by the lives of numerous attendants, physicians, and guards. For them, the success or failure of each bath was more than a matter of cleanliness. It was the balance of the entire realm. Behind heavy draperies, the sound of water running and the warmth of herbal smoke did more than cleanse the Queen's body. They soothed her fears of unseen foes. The palace was not merely a residence, but a fortress against invisible enemies, where each drop was a bullet against betrayal. This caution is why European courts maintained their enigmatic bathing rites, transforming each bath into an orchestration of medicine, security, and sovereign power. As night fell, and the distant strains of court music drifted down the great hall, the Queen sat beside her bath, aroma of medicinal smoke swirling like the final movement of a symphony. In that moment, she not only washed away the fatigue of the day, but also shed every worry of hidden enemies lurking nearby, and then, protected by the mystic bath ritual and its impregnable security, she drifted peacefully into slumber. While royal bathing ceremonies were elaborate and ceremonious, everyday hygiene for the common folk was far more Spartan. After the closure of the public bathhouses, those Romany-era relic-speasant cottages and small-town homes no longer had tubs, and a simple wash basin was a rare luxury. Most households relied on a single basin in the kitchen to wash both dishes and hands. Travelers on foot, unless they carried their own water barrels, had to borrow a wash bowl from wealthier homes, an awkward yet necessary negotiation. The nearest river or stream, sometimes 7 or 8 miles away, was their only reliable source. There they would hastily splash themselves with icy water before wrapping in damp cloaks to avoid chills. Diaries and letters of the era focus more on ratu-infested, threadbare bedding than on any facilities for washing. In villagers' memories, the bedroom was strewn with ragged blankets full of pests, mouse holes in the floorboards, and the musty stench of fabric left damp for days. Some hosts even warned visiting guests not to tidy up too much, lest we lose the old charm. In 1592, an English traveller named Fees Morrison recorded his surprise that only 3 cities, Lübeck, Gdańsk, and Elblągofjord footy washing stations for wayfarers. Small stone troughs stood beside the city gates there, filled with cool water and accompanied by rough towels. free for anyone passing through. The rest of Europe offered no such simple conveniences. Common folk might rinse their hands and face with a basin of sandy water, sometimes with a dash of vinegar to cut odor, simply pat themselves with a dry cloth. Believing that wiping dry was gentler than bathing, they wore loose, coarse garments, so that sweat and grime clung to the fabric rather than their skin, then changed clothes. Once the linen dried out, this routine stretched from dawn until dusk. The most vulnerable pregnant women, the sick, and the elderly faced the greatest hardship. Too weak to haul water from distant wells or rivers, they often relied on relatives to sponge them with herby-infused water heated over the hearth. Scents of garlic, rosemary, and apple cider vinegar filled the sick room, soothing irritation and helping prevent infection. But these makeshift remedies offered only temporary relief when the north wind blew and temperatures dropped below freezing. The very thought of water bathing was unthinkable. Small entries in a Venetian merchant's leisure journal praised resting places by the riverside with heated stoves more highly than any washing station. He advised fellow travellers, warm the body first, then think of washing. Albeit, limited medical knowledge also fueled distrust of water sources. Wells, springs, and rivers were believed to harbour miasmas. If someone hailed from a marshy region, locals would avoid sharing water or washing nearby. As a result, nearly every household kept a small jug of spirits on hand to disinfect water for hand and face washing, a half-trusted ritual that relieved anxiety more than ensured safety. Along the Baltic coast, summer brought relief. Townsfolk bathed at the quay. They waded out from merchant vessels, dipped in the cool sea, then hurried back to don rough woolens against the breeze. After the Great Plague of 1620, the people of Vilnius even held an annual river bath day to celebrate survival, though it meant only washing feet and faces. Unlike most of Europe, northern and eastern regions preserved their public steam bathing traditions. Banyas in Russia, saunas in Sweden and Finland. In Moscow, citizens built wood-heated steam rooms, then plunged into icy ponds, believing the sudden shock cleansed toxins and stimulated circulation. Western visitors marveled, they fear the cold more than disease. Thus, daily life in the Renaissance was not solely the domain of lavish royal rituals. Across villages lay empty washrooms, rare wooden basins, rough linen towels, and a constant dread of contagion. Yet people adapted with what they had: well, buckets, rainwater casks, apple cider vinegar, clay powder sand, a stubborn hope that one day they might soak in warm water again, free from fear of miasma or lice. As you listen to these tales of worn wooden basins and deserted wells, imagine yourself by ancient stone walls, feeling the chill breeze on your skin before drifting into a gentle sleep where the dreams of palace splendor and common hardships merge in history's embrace. When European travelers first arrived in the Middle East, they were overwhelmed by the cleanliness and grandeur of the Hammam Arab public bathhouses, beneath intricately carved plaster domes and across cool mosaic floors. Gentle wisps of fragrant steam filled the air, so that anyone entering felt as if they were shedding the world's grime and preparing for a bodily and spiritual rebirth. In the 1570s, Swabian physician Leonard Rolfe described in detail the ritual at a Tripoli hammam. First came the steam room. Patrons were led into the Tanil Ya, heated to around 50-60 degrees Celsius, where thick vapor opened their pores. Colored glass in the dome filtered daylight into soft amber hues, and the oppressive heat dissolved every care. Next, bathers moved to the slightly cooler Ulukla pool to soak their muscles for a few minutes. Once their skin had relaxed, the vigorous massage began. Skilled attendants used their hands, elbows, and even their feet, sometimes standing on a guest's back to slough away dead skin, promote circulation and stimulate new cell growth. After exfoliation, the guests underwent depilation with a potent paste called lasha, made of arsenic, quicklime, sandalwood powder, and fresh turmeric. This mixture was applied to unwanted hair, left to harden, then peeled off, removing fine hairs and postponing regrowth for weeks. Despite its harsh ingredients, most bathers welcomed the smooth results. The next step was the soap foam, a whipped lather made from olive oil, palm oil, and moringa extract. Coarse woolen mitts were used to scrub the body, chasing away sweat, dirt, and any residual depilatory paste. The soft hiss of bubbles and the murmur of fellow bathers formed a comforting symphony. Finally, a layer of gasol clay from Egyptian quarries was applied all over. This rich clay not only moisturized deeply, but absorbed any remaining oil and impurities. After several minutes, the dried clay was rinsed away, leaving the skin extraordinarily smooth, firm, and refreshed. Unlike secretive royal baths, these public hammams were state-supported or sponsored by local rulers, and charged only a nominal fee, just enough to cover wood and soap. This modest charge guaranteed access for every social class. Bathing 2 to 3 times a week was considered normal. Those who skipped hammams were labelled unclean and socially shunned. 17th century English traveller Henry Blount praised the hammam in his journal. Bathing here is even more important than bread. He argued that bathing was as essential to daily life and communal health as basic nourishment. The hammam also served as a social hub. Men's and women's sections were separate, but within each, friends met. News was exchanged, and even business deals were struck. Cooling alcoves with rosewater basins and marble benches offered relaxation after the bath. For Middle Easterners, the hammam was as integral as prayer, both cleansing body and community in equal measure. European visitors agreed that no experience had ever scrubbed them so completely. They spoke of the soothing aromas, the enveloping heat, and the gentle clash of water and experience that stood in stark contrast to the miasma-fueled dread of European bathing. At days end, they left the hammam in light garments, their skin still carrying a sheen of oils and clay. They walked away feeling reborn, ready to face whatever came next. And as night fell across the city, tales of the Arab bathhouse echoed on, a place where cleanliness was both a cultural ritual and a testament to the unity of body and community. So let your mind drift on rising steam, rosewater, and cedar woodlet. Each warm drop lull you into sleep, where every trace of fatigue washes away like the final foam in a mysterious hammam. In Spain, after the expulsion of the Moors in 1492, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand ordered the destruction of every remaining hammamtha public bathhouses that had stood as cultural and religious monuments of Muslim Andalusia. By 1576, Philip II formally outlawed public bathing altogether. To bathe repeatedly was now branded heretical, linked in popular imagination to clandestine Muslim and Jewish practices. This further entrenched a new stigma. The nobility came to equate water avoidance with spiritual purity and chastity. At court functions in El Escorial, aristocrats praised the virtue of remaining dry as a sign of religious devotion. Thick collars and perfumed collars replaced water. To be seen emerging from a bath would have been tantamount to flaunting unbelief. Philip II's 1576 edict went beyond closing bathhouse sit, imposed harsh punishments on anyone rebuilding or even preserving bathhouse fittings. Some offenders faced the lash. Others had their property seized. Accused of cleansing the flesh in defiance of Catholic custom, the decree spread rapidly through the Habsburg court, where bath vapours were now viewed as hotbeds of pagan impurity. Among commoners, too, the idea to bathe is to betray the faith took hold. Travellers passing through villages were advised to ask first, "Does anyone here bathe?" If they learned the locals honoured water avoidance, they knew not to request a basin list. They'd be judged godless. Market stalls even sold scented gloves, rough cloths soaked in alum and dried orange peel as a makeshift hygiene accessory. The church itself reinforced the taboo. Preachers taught that the body was a vessel of sin, and only the soul needed cleansing. They exhorted believers to keep the flesh dry, to bathe only in the blood of Christ. Baptismal fonts in every parish competed with the memory of warm baths, becoming the sole acceptable form of washing away impurity. This anti-bathing mindset persisted well into the 18th century. Inland Highland towns prohibited public baths during religious festivals, claiming water would drain the communal spirit. Even royal princesses in Madrid were confined to dry baths, meaning they wiped themselves with perfumed cloths instead of soaking in tubs. While the palace bathing rooms lay unused and gathering dust, the consequences were dire. Incidents of skin infections and scabies in Andalusia surged, yet medical authorities dared not advocate rebuilding bathhouses for fear of being labelled heretics. Many physicians resorted to secretly inviting patients to their private chambers for herbal water dressings, carefully concealing these treatments from the watchful eyes of the Inquisition. Only in the late 18th century, when Enlightenment-era medical reforms demonstrated that regular bathing sharply reduced cholera, dysentery, and typhoid outbreaks, did Spain begin to reconsider. A handful of public baths reopened in Valencia and Barcelona, and some new inns finally offered private bathing rooms. Yet the old prejudice endured in popular proverbs. Do not ask for water to bathe. Ask if the heart is still dry. And now, as you listen to this chapter of Spain's bathing prohibitions and prejudice, picture crumbling tiled roofs and ruined bathhouses. Hear the villagers' laments at having lost their baths. Take a deep breath, let that sense of loss wash over you before slipping into a restful sleep, carried by the very convictions that once kept an entire generation dry. Amid the grim years of the early 17th century, when war and plague ravaged European legend, arose around Isabella Clara Eugenia, 1567, 1633. Daughter of Philip II and governor of the Spanish Netherlands. It is said that during the 3 years, 3 months, and 13 days of the siege of Ostend, 1601, 1604, she vowed neither to change her clothing nor to bathe, sharing in the hardships of the soldiers and upholding her solemn oath to the people. As the Dutch forces encircled Ostend, the city became a bitter battleground where icy sea winds mingled with the roar of cannon fire. Food and clean water dwindled. Disease spread. Yet Isabella, driven by iron resolve, remained in her makeshift palace within the siege lines. She declared, "If my soldiers lack even a shred of clean linen, then this princess will wear her white gown until it is no more." From that vow, for hundreds of days and nights, she neither bathed nor changed the pristine white dress she first wore. Folk tales tell that her garment gradually turned yellowish, then deepened to rust streaked with mud, rain, and the sweat of soldiers. Each time she appeared in that time-worn gown, it shone as a sacred banner, proof of shared suffering and unbreakable determination. The mottled stains and faded fibres on her dress spoke louder than words, telling of a noblewoman more steadfast than any blade, though later historians suggest the story was embellished to hallow her courage. Its core remains potent. Refusing to bathe became a testament to unwavering faith and solidarity. In an age when bathing signified religious purification and was a daily luxury for the elite, her abstention carried immense symbolic weight. The belief that the body must endure hardship to prove its worth inspired many soldiers to view Isabella as their exemplar. They took quiet pride. If she could stand the grime and odour, then their own sacrifices for country were but small trials. Artistic sketches and eyewitness accounts captured her in that stained gown, stirring courage in the hearts of men facing death. Yet beneath the legend lay harsh reality. The improvised palace lacked room to air clothes. Potable water was hoarded for cooking and trenches. With typhus and malaria looming, even if Isabella had wished to bathe, water itself could kill. In that muddy, disease-ridden environment, Abstaining from washing may have been a pragmatic measure to prevent infection. This blend of practical endurance and symbolic devotion makes the tale all the more poignant. Isabella Clara Eugenia became not just a figure of bravery, but a living bond between personal virtue and the well-being of her people. When Ostend finally fell starvation and sickness rampant, the image of her yellow-brown dress faded. But the legend endured. The story of the colour-changing robe passed from battle-weary veterans to chroniclers of later centuries, proving that even the simple act of bathing can become a powerful symbol of honour and commitment. Isabella's slim, yet unyielding, showed the world that an oath's strength can eclipse the sharpest sword. As you listen, let your mind drift to rain-lashed sails and hear the waves crashing on Ostend's battered walls, where the echo of her stained dress still resonates. Allow yourself to relax. Feel each heartbeat quicken with heroic spirit, then slip gently into slumber. Lulled by an immortal vow and an indomitable soul, when Henry Blount, England's ambassador under Charles I, first stepped into an Ottoman public bath, hammam, in Istanbul, he felt as though he had entered a different realm, where warm steam enveloped every sense and awakened an extraordinary calm. Beneath lofty domes, intricately carved with geometric patterns, light filtered through coloured glass panes, scattering shimmering rays across cool marble walls. The air was redolent with sandalwood and rose. Blount described the hammam as a miracle amid Europe's desert of civilization, where water and steam were still objects of dread. The ritual began in the hararet, a steam room heated to around 50-60 degrees Celsius. Blount felt sweat bead on his forehead and trickle down his neck as attendants wiped him dry with white linen cloths. Local silk merchants, janissary soldiers, palace servants, and learned scholars gathered on heated stone benches, exchanging news of the spice markets or letters from Baghdad. There was no distinction of rank. Everyone shared in the steam bath as a communal rite. Next came the alukla, a moderately warm pool where tired muscles relaxed. Blount marvelled at the telek bath attendants who used their hands, elbows, and even their feet to knead tight muscles. Sometimes, they even stood on a bather's back to apply deeper pressure. Stimulating circulation and invigorating the body, every gasp of breath and splash of water formed a vibrant melody, in stark contrast to the silence of English baths. Following the warm plunge and massage, bathers entered the cold pool, or sogukluk, where they experienced a sudden, exhilarating chill. Blount wrote, "One moment enveloped in warmth. The next, my bones felt numbed. Yet an unexpected thrill surged through me. The alternation of heat, vigorous massage, and cold water acted like a balanced therapy for both skin and circulation." Remarkably, he praised the hammam's communal ethos. Here, bathing is both a right and a duty. Ottoman citizens bathed at least twice weekly. Those who skipped regularly were whispered about as unclean. Blount noted this stark difference and realized that Europe lagged behind in hygiene practices. While Ottoman culture had laid foundations for modern medicine detoxifying through the skin, using herbal antiseptics, and reinforcing community bonds through shared bathing. Blount also described the post-bath sanctuary, cool marble lounges where mint tea and chilled fruit drinks were served, carved stone seats bearing dragon and phoenix motifs, and lacquered murals depicting imperial triumphs. He observed officials conducting state business, merchants signing contracts, and poets reciting verse all within the bathhouse's social sphere. The hammam was not merely for washing, but a lifestyle celebrating health, social interaction, and cultural exchange. When he departed the hammam, Blount declared that my body felt reborn, my spirit cleansed of every care. He brought back to England tales of steam rooms, hot and cold baths, expert massage, and the hammam's communal spiritas, a powerful testament to the importance of public hygiene and social cohesion. Now, As you close your eyes and listen, imagine warm steam seeping into every pore, rose and cedarwood aromas drifting gently around you, soothing your mind before you drift into a peaceful slumber, just as Henry Blount experienced in that wondrous Ottoman hammam. In late 17th and early 18th century Western Europe, the shadow of the Inquisition still cast doubt upon water and cleanliness. In France, any talk of frequent bathing was whispered to mark one as a secret Muslim or hidden Jew, heretical adherents who carried forbidden foreign customs. Clerics warned that excessive washing would nourish miasmas of impiety, and that only the soul, not the body, required true purification. Though no scientific proof supported these claims, both court etiquette and popular prejudice held firm. To bathe too often was to risk one's salvation. In many noble households, ladies in waiting offered only a dampened cloth for face and hand each morning, followed by a perfumed wipe of vinegar or scented waters, anything to avoid fully immersing skin in a tub. Anyone discovered dousing flesh with water faced censure as a moral renegade. That attitude persisted until the reign of Louis XV, 1710–1774, when winds of change began blowing through Paris and the great provincial cities. The arrival of eau de Cologne first, created by the Farina family in Cologne, proved pivotal. Rather than vinegar, the aristocracy now dabbed a few drops of this refined, citrus floral eau into their toilette water. The bright, uplifting scent of lemon, orange blossom, and lavender reassured the timid that water, infused with fragrance, would seal pores against imaginary miasmas and leave skin fresh yet safe. Alongside perfumed waters, scented powders, poudre, and aromatic gloves became indispensable. Parisian salons dusted their bodies with blends of pinewood, frankincense, and musk powders absorbing moisture and masking odors without the need for a full bath. Donning a soft leather glove infused with rose or sandalwood oil, one simply massaged arms and shoulders, enjoying a discreet, dry bath that felt elegant and hygienic. Louis XV himself championed the construction of private bathrooms in chateaux and noble hotels. From Versailles to Fontainebleau, tiled chambers equipped with porcelain basins, flowing spigots, and rudimentary drainage systems began to appear. Marseille already celebrated for its olive oil soap-supplied fragrant bars, and a simple turn of a brass valve delivered heated or cool water on demand. The fruit of tedious copperabio bath rituals gave way to effortless tub bathing. Simultaneously, advances in plumbing and urban sanitation reshaped public health. Under Louis XV, ambitious engineering projects piped Seine water filtered through lead mains into public fountains and fountains embedded in grand squares. Sewers replaced open drains, banishing stagnant water and the foul bad airs that had long stalked city streets. Pioneering physicians such as Lemery and Fagon published treatises extolling daily washing. They credited regular bathing with preventing fevers, reducing infection, and strengthening the body. As these new ideas spread, salon journals and medical pamphlets offered step-by-step guides to the art of bathing. One might begin with a hot compress of herb-infused cloth. Proceed to a lather of Marseille soap scented with rose oil. Soak briefly in a warm tub, then finish by dusting on fine powder and wrapping in a light silk robe. Such manuals not only instructed on technique, but also reframed bathing as a civilized, health-promoting custom. The combined force of science and infrastructure shattered the old taboo. What had once been stigmatized as sinful overindulgence became recognized as vital self-care and as a civic duty. New public bathhouses opened in Paris, offering modest fees so that travelers and citizens alike could bathe in comfort and privacy. These establishments, inspired in part by Eastern hammams, but stripped of any religious baggage, quickly gained popularity. By the close of the 18th century, public health reports documented dramatic declines in cholera, dysentery, and typhoid among communities with regular access to bathing facilities. In France, bathing culture was revived in full. Royal palaces, urban mansions, and even middle-class homes installed indoor baths and hot-cold taps. The old equation hygiene equals heresy became a distant memory, replaced by a new maxim. To bathe is a right, to wash is a duty. And now, as you reflect on this chapter of France's rebirth of bathing culture, imagine warm water cascading over your skin, scented with delicate oils before you drift into a blissful sleep, cleansed of all old fears and ready to dream in purity, just as the Parisians did beneath their gleaming 18th century baths. Part 14. Northern European steam bathing and the revival of hygiene through the 19th century. Unlike in Western Europe where miasma and accusations of heresy once made water an enemy, Northern and Eastern Europe preserved a public steam new bathing tradition spanning millennia. From simple wooden banyas in Russia to the unadorned stone and pine saunas of Sweden and Finland, local communities regarded alternating steam and cold as a comprehensive regimen for body care, communal bonding, and health promotion. Russia's banya tradition. Since the 10th century, the banya has been integral to Russian life. Small log structures either freestanding or built beside rivers nestle against forest edges, inside low-domed rooms. Wood fires glow in brick stoves, while white smoke curls along plank walls. The rising heat causes pores to open, beckoning sweat and toxins to escape. After a thorough steam session, bathers plunge into a nearby ice-cold pond, staggering in the shock of temperature, before quickly reviving, as if reborn. Along Baltic shores, the banya also served as a social hub. Families gathered and friends reunited amid the hiss of steam and the rhythmic swish of birch branch whisks, venic tapping across skin. Punctuated by laughter, custom dictated that each guest wield a small venic bundle soaked in anti-inflammatory and antiseptic herbs. The continuous whipping not only exfoliated dead skin, but stimulated blood flow, keeping bodies warm long after the frigid air bit outside. Swedish and Finnish saunas. In Sweden and Finland, the sauna became a cultural cornerstone. Wealthier households built private sauna rooms in their gardens or on rocky lake shores. Heater-resistant pine wood, with its subtle fragrance and natural humidity, created a serene sanctuary. Bathers first sat on upper benches to absorb intense heat, then moved down to cooler levels for gradual relief. Repeated cycles of hot and cold were viewed as the most effective detox therapy, toning skin, bolstering immunity, and sharpening the mind. Western travelers marveled at the spectacle of waving oak branch whisks, leaves gently lashing shoulders, back, and neck in a rustling forest-like symphony. After steaming, they immersed themselves in mountain pools, feeling each icy drop tingle through their veins, then cocooned in warm blankets or even old newspapers to trap the heat. From steam room to cold plunge to the solitude of the venic ritual, the experience left such an impression that many brought sauna ideas back to England and France. Industrialization and modern plumbing. From the 18th century onward, industrialization and urban reforms transformed Northern European water systems. Stockholm, Helsinki, and St. Petersburg laid copper and cast iron pipes from rivers and lakes into private homes, delivering hot and cold water to each apartment. Comprehensive sewage networks replaced foul open drains, dramatically reducing street miasmas and odors concurrently. Medical advances confirmed the curative power of heat and water. Swedish physician Peter Forsskål published treatises on the health benefits of steam and cold bathing. Water paves the way for harmful vapors to exit, fortifies the vascular system, and strengthens resistance. Helsinki's medical journals reported sharp declines in cholera and influenza in communities practicing regular sauna use. 19th century hygiene manuals and spa culture. By the early 19th century, technical manuals and personal hygiene guides were widespread. Stockholm's published Sauna Guide recommended at least 2 steam sessions per week, interspersed with cold plunges, pre-soaking Venix in salt water and herbs, and sipping hot honey eye lemon tea afterward to rebalance electrolytes. These protocols spread across Scandinavia and southwestern Russia, codifying a systematic hot-cold relaxed lifestyle. Architecture and interior design also evolved. Finnish and Swedish manners added tiled sauna chambers with small windows to admit daylight. The first lakeside spa resorts opened to urban dwellers at modest prices, making sauna the conductor of cold country tourism and drawing guests from across Europe. Industrial progress spurred production of specialized sauna mitts, and dedicated bathing attire. Cotton or linen blends wicked moisture quickly without clinging. Thick terry robes designed to avoid thermal shock on exit were invented not only for local families but also exported to England, France, and Germany, kindling a continental sauna craze, a new era of cleanliness. By mid-19th century, the fusion of ancient sauna traditions and modern water infrastructure ushered in a new hygiene era. Cities like St. Petersburg held annual sauna and banya festivals, celebrating local steam new bath culture. Helsinki opened the world's first sauna museum, showcasing history and implements. Physicians and writers alike lauded the sauna not merely as personal hygiene but as psychological therapy. The steam bath cleanses the body and the mind. How? Thus, Europe's enduring fear of water finally closed its chapter in the north and east. Water was no longer synonymous with miasma or heresy, but embraced as a means of purification, relaxation, and health enhancement. The hot, cold rest ritual became a cultural heritage recognized by UNESCO in many regions. Saunas and banyas not only helped prevent disease but also strengthened families, friendships, and community ties. And now, as you close your eyes, imagine warm steam filling a pinewood room, the faint scent of birch on your skin, the thrilling tingle of cold water on your body. Then, wrapping yourself in a soft towel, let your thoughts flow in the hotty, cold, soothing rhythm, and drift into a deep sleep, feeling reborn as though you, too, have just emerged from a Nordic steam sanctuary. Finally, when we ask again, why did Elizabeth I rarely bathe? The answer is not merely a personal oddity of one queen, but the turning point of an entire era. In the 16th, 17th centuries, Europe was gripped by the fear of miasma, deadly vapor sand, the notion that frequent bathing was heretical or even life-threatening, making water an enemy. Elizabeth I and the English nobility, rather than immerse themselves in tubs, adopted elaborate dry baths with scented oils, powders, linen, and the ceremonial 24-hour bath, a protective armor for health and status. Meanwhile, in other civilizations, from the vibrant public hammams of the Ottoman Empire to the warm saunas and banyas of northern Europe, remained a vital communal ritual, a detoxifying remedy, and a social bond. It was not until the 18th, 19th centuries, with the Enlightenment, modern water and sewage systems, and private baths spreading through France, England, and European cities, that bathing was fully restored as an essential practice for health and civility. Thus, Elizabeth I's water avoidance was not mere eccentricity but the culmination of outdated medicine, religious beliefs, dynastic security concerns, and infrastructural limitations. Understanding this context lets us not only solve the puzzle behind our title but also appreciate humanity's long, tumultuous journey from fear of water to the modern era of hygiene. Sweet dreams. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the newest and best videos on other fascinating historical topics.